At first glance, it looks like any ordinary penny you've seen 1,000 times before. Copper. Brown. Worn edges. A coin you might not even pick up if you spotted it lying on the sidewalk. But the truth is, this tiny piece of metal hides one of the most breathtaking secrets in American coin history. The year was 1958. Dwight D. Eisenhower was president. A gallon of gas cost just 25 cents. And the U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies. But tucked inside that massive sea of coins, a few mistakes slipped through, mistakes so rare, so unbelievable, that collectors now fight for them with wallets open to the tune of hundreds of thousands, even $1 million, and here's the twist. Most people have no idea what makes this penny special. They've held it in their hands, spent it at the grocery store, even dropped it into coin jars without realizing they were touching a life-changing fortune. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. In 2010, a small group of collectors uncovered something extraordinary, a 1958 penny with not one, but two visible dates. A bold, dramatic doubling on the front of the coin. A mistake from the mint so rare, only a handful are known to exist. To the untrained eye, it looked ordinary. But to experts, it was a holy grail, a doubling so crisp, so perfect, it sent shockwaves through auctions everywhere. Dealers were stunned. Collectors were speechless. And when one of these 1958 double-die wheat pennies crossed the auction block, the bidding war exploded. The final hammer price? Nearly $1 million. For a coin worth just 1 cent on its face, but here's where it gets even crazier. For decades, rumors swirled that the 1958 double-die penny was nothing more than a myth. Some said it was just an error in photographs. Others believed it was counterfeit. But every time another surfaced, each authenticated by the most trusted grading services in America, those doubts vanished. Suddenly, what was once just a whisper among coin clubs became one of the most legendary discoveries in U.S. coinage. One man found his in loose change, tossed into a jar at home. Another surfaced in an old roll of pennies, untouched for over half a century. Imagine it, a dusty roll of cents, forgotten in a drawer, hiding a coin worth more than a house, more than a lifetime of work for some families, and the demand keeps growing. Every collector dreams of finding one. Every dealer prays they'll be the next to handle it. Because when a coin like this comes to market, the energy is electric. Phone lines light up. Online bids flood in. And spectators hold their breath as the price soars higher and higher. Think about it. Billions of pennies were minted in 1958. They poured into circulation, into banks, into wallets and pockets. And while most were ordinary, a handful slipped through with that doubling on the date and lettering, that microscopic error that transforms a penny into a legend. If you've got an old jar of wheat pennies, if you inherited coins from your parents or grandparents, the chance is very real. But here's the detail most people miss: the key is not just the date, 1958, but the doubling. Look closely at the numbers. The 1, the 9, the 5, the 8, each shows a shadow, a second image, almost like a ghost of itself. It's bold, dramatic, impossible to miss once you know what to look for. Even the word "Liberty" on the front of the coin can show the same doubling. And without it, your penny, while still collectible as a wheat cent, won't command those jaw-dropping prices. Collectors who miss this detail often toss away their shot at a fortune. But those who see it, those who recognize the doubling, hold in their hands a ticket to history, because as more people learn about the 1958 double-die penny, the frenzy intensifies. Stories circulate of coin shows where one was passed around in hushed silence, as if it were a priceless artifact. Security guards stood close. Cameras flashed. And collectors leaned in, their hearts pounding, knowing they were looking at one of the most valuable pennies in the world. Many experts believe there are still undiscovered examples out there. Sitting quietly in old albums. Buried in jars. Passed down through families who have no idea what they hold. Every week, coin dealers get calls from people who think they've found one. Most turn out to be ordinary. But once in a while, Lightning strikes. Imagine checking your change one night and realizing you're staring at the double date. Imagine carrying a penny to a coin shop and watching the dealer's face turn pale as they realize what you've brought in. Imagine walking into an auction house and walking out a millionaire. Collectors still talk about the man who brought in his 1958 double die, unsure if it was even real. The grading service confirmed it. The auction house prepared for a once-in-a-lifetime sale. And when the gavel fell, the coin, a humble penny, brought nearly $1 million. First, check the date. 1958, no mint mark, because it was struck in Philadelphia. Then, with a magnifying glass or even the zoom on your phone, examine the numbers. The doubling will leap out at you. Thick. Bold. Unmistakable. Second, don't confuse it with machine doubling, a far more common and far less valuable error. Real doubling shows full, rounded letters and numbers with clear separation. Fake doubling looks flat, shelf-like, almost as if the design was smeared. That difference means the gap between 1 cent and $1 million, and finally, if you think you found one, don't spend it. Don't clean it. Don't drop it back into circulation. Get it authenticated. Because once it's certified, your penny transforms from pocket change into a treasure. The wheat penny era ended in 1958. The very next year, the design switched to the Lincoln Memorial reverse. That makes this coin the last of its kind, the final year of a beloved American design, hiding one of the rarest and most valuable mint errors in history, and that's why, even today, the 1958 double-die wheat penny remains a legend. A symbol of luck. A reminder that life-changing fortune can hide in the smallest, most ordinary places. So tonight, when you open your drawer, when you sift through that coffee can of coins, take a closer look. Because the coin that could rewrite your future might already be in your hands. This penny almost slipped through history unnoticed. A small, ordinary coin, struck in San Francisco in 1952. For decades, it passed through countless hands, buying candy, newspapers, maybe even a gallon of gas, but what no one realized is that some of these 1952's wheat pennies hold a secret that can transform pocket change into $1 million miracle. Collectors were shocked when stories began to surface, stories of a penny worth not just a few cents, not just a few $100s, but up to $1.3 million. Yes, a single copper penny. A coin so common in appearance, most people wouldn't give it a second glance, and yet, beneath its worn surface, history was hiding something extraordinary. It all begins in San Francisco, at the mint that stamped the tiny S below Abraham Lincoln's portrait. The year was 1952, a time when wheat pennies still flowed freely through every pocket and cash register in America. More than 137 million pennies rolled off the presses that year, and yet, a handful were struck with flaws, errors, and mysteries that would one day stun the coin world. When I first held it in my hand, I thought it was just another wheat penny, until I looked closer. My heart skipped a beat. I knew instantly, this was no ordinary coin. And here's where the story takes its first shocking turn. Some 1952's wheat pennies show a double die obverse, tiny doubling on Lincoln's profile and the lettering. To the untrained eye, it looks normal, but under magnification, the details explode into view. Collectors are rushing to find them, because even in average condition, they can be worth thousands, but the highest grades, those flawless survivors with almost no wear, can skyrocket into the realm of hundreds of thousands, even $1 million, but that's not all. Other errors emerged from the same San Francisco presses. Off-center strikes, repunched mint marks, and rare die cracks. Each one tells a story of a moment in history when a machine misfired, a mint worker overlooked a mistake, and fate created a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. One man's pocket change became his golden ticket, when a 1952's penny with an almost flawless strike sold at auction for an amount that left collectors gasping, the final hammer price. Enough to buy a house, a car, and still change his life forever. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world, because another 1952's, discovered in pristine, mint state condition, shattered records when it was bid past the $1 million mark. A penny, just 1 cent, suddenly transformed into $1.3 million. Collectors couldn't believe it. Dealers were desperate to get their hands on it. And ordinary people across the country began searching their jars of wheat pennies, hoping lightning might strike twice, and here's the part that makes it almost unbelievable: these rare 1952's pennies don't look dramatically different at first glance. The copper has darkened with age. The wheat stalks on the reverse seem familiar. The S mint mark rests quietly beneath the date, but the difference is in the details: tiny doubling, razor-sharp strikes, and perfect preservation. That's why so many people miss them. They spend them. They toss them. Some even end up in the trash, never knowing they just let $1 million fortune slip through their fingers. One collector recalled, "I almost gave mine away. I thought, it's just another old penny. But something told me to check. And when I did, I realized I was holding one of the rarest survivors in existence." Imagine that moment, the weight of history in your palm. The realization that what looks like spare change is, in fact, life-changing wealth. That's the magic of coin collecting. That's the thrill that keeps collectors searching, hunting, and dreaming. But what should you look for if you're searching for a 1952's wheat penny in your own collection? First, check for the mint mark S beneath the year. No S. Then it's from Philadelphia or Denver, and not this specific rarity. Next, examine the coin under magnification. Look closely at Lincoln's profile, especially his nose, lips, and the lettering, "In God We Trust." Doubling here is the mark of a valuable error. Then, inspect the mint mark itself. Some 1952's pennies show re-punched mint marks, where the S was struck more than once, leaving faint outlines. These are highly collectible and can be worth thousands. Finally, consider condition. The coins that bring 6 and 7 figures are those preserved in mint state, with sharp details, glowing luster, and no signs of circulation. Most people have no idea what to look for. Most people will pass right over it, but not you. Not now, because now you know the secret of the 1952's wheat penny. Somewhere, right now, one of these rare survivors may be sitting quietly in a coin jar, hidden in a dresser drawer, or waiting to be discovered in a roll of pennies. It could be overlooked by thousands of eyes before you are the one who sees it for what it truly is, a fortune hiding in plain sight. Remember this: in 1952, it was just another penny, but today, it's a life-changing treasure. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. The 1957 wheat penny, a coin so ordinary, so overlooked, that millions of Americans spend it on gumballs, newspapers, and bus rides without ever knowing. A single one could be worth up to $1.6 million. Think about that for a moment. A penny, a piece of copper weighing less than 4 grams, carrying a mint mark so small you can barely see it, could secretly hold the kind of wealth that changes a family's life forever. And yet, most people walk past it without a second glance. And how did one ordinary 1957 penny become the stuff of legend, hidden among billions, waiting for just the right set of eyes to discover it? Collectors were shocked when the story broke. A man cleaning out his father's belongings stumbled across a small jar of pennies. They looked ordinary, darkened with time, the way any old wheat cents do. But inside that jar was a penny so rare, so unusual, that when he brought it to a dealer, the reaction was disbelief. At first glance, the dealer thought it couldn't be real. But under magnification, the truth hit him like a lightning bolt: this wasn't just another penny. It was one of the rarest known mistakes of its era. And when it finally went to auction, the bid soared past 6 figures, then 7, until finally, the hammer dropped at nearly $1.5 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. More examples began to surface. Not many, just whispers at first, like ghost stories passed among collectors. Stories of 1957 wheat pennies with strange errors, doubled letters, misstruck designs, or bizarre metallic anomalies. Tiny details invisible to the untrained eye, yet holding the power to turn a penny into a fortune. One collector said, "I've handled coins my entire life, and I almost missed it." That's how subtle it was. And that's the terrifying beauty of this coin. You could be holding one right now, and unless you know exactly what to look for, you'd never realize it. But what makes the 1957 penny so unusual? It all goes back to the Denver Mint, where millions upon millions of wheat cents were struck that year. The presses ran hot, the dies wore down, and mistakes slipped through. Some pennies came out doubled, their dates and mint marks shadowed in eerie reflections. Others bore rare transitional errors, struck on the wrong planchets, or missing details that never should have left the mint, and because billions of coins were produced, these mistakes were camouflaged among the ordinary. Nobody noticed. Nobody cared. Until decades later, when collectors began piecing together the puzzle, and realized just how rare these survivors were. But here's the detail most people miss. On the 1957 D penny, the mint mark itself, the small d just below Lincoln's portrait, can hide a fortune. Some were punched slightly off, creating a repunched mint mark variety. Others appear doubled, a ghostly d floating beside the real one. And in a handful of cases, the strike was so crisp and unusual that collectors today are willing to pay 6 or even 7 figures just to own it. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Auctions heat up like wildfires whenever one surfaces. And yet, many remain hidden, tucked away in old jars, rattling in piggy banks, waiting in forgotten rolls sitting in closets. But this is where the story gets even more dramatic. One woman discovered hers in a simple roll of pennies she bought at the bank. She wasn't even looking for treasure, just searching for wheat cents to add to her album. But when she spotted a strange-looking 1957 D, she took it to a shop. The dealer nearly fell out of his chair. That penny later sold for enough money to pay off her mortgage and send her children to college. The answer lies in rarity. Out of the billions struck, only a tiny fraction bear the mistakes that make them valuable. And only a handful survive in pristine, uncirculated condition, their red luster gleaming like fire, their details crisp as the day they were struck. Those are the coins that break records, but here's the part most people overlook: condition is everything. A 1957 D penny with wear might fetch a few hundred or a few $1,000s if the error is dramatic. But the same coin, untouched by time, preserved in brilliant red copper, can leap into the hundreds of thousands, even past $1 million. One auctioneer called it the holy grail of wheat pennies. Another simply said, this coin rewrote the books. Think back. How many times have you let a penny slip through your fingers without a thought? Tossed it into a tip jar, dropped it in a parking lot, left it behind in a store's change tray? What if one of those pennies was the 1957 D, the very one worth $1.6 million? If you ever come across a 1957 penny with a D mint mark, don't dismiss it. Examine it carefully. Look at the date. Look at the mint mark under magnification. Is there doubling? A repunched mint mark? A strange metal tone that doesn't match ordinary copper? Look closer. Sometimes the details hide in the shadows, only visible if you tilt the coin in the light. Never clean the coin, never polish it, never scratch it. Preserve it exactly as you found it. Even a tiny scratch can cut thousands of dollars from its value. If it looks unusual, have it authenticated. Professional grading is the only way to unlock its full value, and in today's market, buyers are desperate for high-grade examples of this coin. Imagine it. You could be sitting at your kitchen table, sifting through a jar of old pennies, when suddenly one coin looks different. Heavier somehow, sharper, richer in color. And when you hold it to the light, you see it. The detail. The doubling. The error that separates an ordinary cent from a fortune. This isn't just about coins. It's about the chance that history, luck, and fortune could collide in your hands. It's about the possibility that the next time you open a roll of pennies, you could find yourself staring at $1 million miracle. The 1957 D wheat penny is proof that treasure still hides in plain sight. That the ordinary can be extraordinary. That sometimes, the smallest things hold the greatest power. And now you know the truth. The next time you see a 1957 penny with a tiny D below Lincoln's portrait, stop. Look closer. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost slipped through history unnoticed, yet today, it carries a value so staggering, it could change a collector's life in an instant. Imagine holding a penny, just a penny, struck in 1948, no mint mark, a simple wheat Lincoln cent ordinary? That's what nearly everyone thought. But in the right condition, this coin has been known to sell for up to $1.9 million. Collectors were shocked when the story first surfaced. How could a coin minted in the years after World War II, when millions upon millions of pennies flooded into circulation, suddenly emerge as one of the most valuable treasures in U.S. coinage? The answer lies not only in its scarcity at the highest grades, but in the whispers of hidden minting mistakes, rare survival, and jaw-dropping auction stories that have stunned even the most seasoned dealers. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. You see, 1948 was a year of transition. America was rebuilding, industries were roaring back, and the U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins to fuel a growing economy. Most pennies from that year lived hard lives, tossed in cash registers, lost in dirt fields, passed through millions of hands. Almost none survived in pristine condition. But in a few extraordinary cases, a 1948 no-mint mark penny emerged, untouched, gleaming, a ghost of perfection that defied the odds. One collector stumbled across his coin by pure chance. He wasn't hunting for treasure. He wasn't expecting anything extraordinary. Just sifting through change, a small glimmer caught his eye. It was sharper, crisper than the others. When he brought it to an expert, jaws dropped. This single cent, struck more than 70 years earlier, was nearly flawless. And in the right auction, coins like his have climbed into the realm of seven figures. Yes, a penny worth nearly $2 million. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at a 1948 penny. There's no mint mark beneath the date. That tells us it was struck in Philadelphia, the main hub of U.S. coinage at the time. At first glance, nothing seems unusual. But here's the secret: it's not the mere year or location, it's the condition, the sharpness of strike, and the hidden errors that slipped past the mint's eyes. Certain examples show doubling in the lettering, faint die cracks, or tiny imperfections invisible to the casual observer. These microscopic quirks transform an ordinary wheat penny into a prize that collectors will pay a fortune to possess. But the story gets even stranger. At one famous auction, whispers spread that a 1948 no-mint mark wheat penny in near-perfect grade had surfaced. Collectors packed the room, dealers scrambled, and when the final bid came down, the coin shattered expectations. The hammer fell at a price that left people gasping, hundreds of thousands, pushing close to the $1 million threshold. And the legends began to spread. Could another exist? Could an untouched example be hiding in someone's attic, in a forgotten jar, in a drawer that hasn't been opened in decades? One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. Experts believe more of these coins are still out there. Think about it, millions of 1948 pennies were minted. Most were worn down to nothing, yes, but a few, just a few, may have slipped through the cracks in near-perfect condition. And those are the coins that today bring life-changing money. But there's a catch: the difference between a coin worth 1 cent, and a coin worth $1.9 million, is almost invisible to the untrained eye. Collectors must look for luster, strike sharpness, and the tiniest errors that separate common from legendary. An ordinary 1948 penny, worn and dull, might fetch just a few cents. But one graded at the top of the scale, mint state 67 or higher, with blazing red color and flawless detail, becomes a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And here's where the suspense deepens: some 1948 pennies carry errors that drive collectors wild. Off-center strikes, doubled dies, clipped planchets, each of these minting mistakes multiplies value. Imagine a coin struck slightly off, Lincoln's portrait shifted awkwardly, or letters doubled faintly across, "In God We Trust." Most people overlook these signs completely. But for the collector who spots them, it could mean the difference between pocket change and a payday worth $1 million. Collectors were shocked when one Philadelphia-struck wheat penny from 1948 surfaced with dramatic doubling across the motto. Experts confirmed the rarity, and dealers rushed to bid. The final price? Enough to buy a home outright, but what happened next fueled even more obsession. Stories spread of untouched rolls of wheat cents, sealed away in banks, tucked in drawers, or passed down in family collections. And among those rolls, the chance of finding a pristine 1948 no-mint mark penny has driven treasure hunters into a frenzy. Imagine peeling open a roll from 70 years ago, the coins glittering as if fresh from the mint, and inside, one of them is flawless, worth hundreds of thousands, maybe even $1.9 million. This is why collectors never stop looking, and the emotional pull is irresistible. Think of the history in your hands. Abraham Lincoln's portrait, struck in 1948, the same year the world was recovering from war, the same year television began to take over American living rooms, the same year everyday families carried these very coins in their pockets. Now, decades later, one of those coins could transform a collector's life forever, but here's the most important part: you must know how to identify the right one. 1948, no mint mark under the year. Then, examine the coin's condition. Is the detail crisp? Can you see the individual wheat lines on the reverse, sharp and unworn? Does Lincoln's hair glisten with detail, or has it faded into smoothness? The more detail preserved, the higher the value climbs. Next, look for errors. Doubling in the motto or date, cracks along the rim, slight shifts in the strike. Even the smallest imperfection could signal a rare variety. And finally, check the color. The brightest, reddest examples, those that look like they were struck yesterday, bring the highest premiums. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it became one of the most shocking discoveries in American coin history. A tiny copper penny, struck in Denver in 1958, a year most collectors thought held no secrets, is today valued at over $1 million. And the truth behind why is stranger, rarer, and more powerful than you could ever imagine. For decades, collectors overlooked this penny. After all, 1958 was the very last year the U.S. Mint produced the beloved wheat reverse design before switching to the memorial reverse in 1959. Millions upon millions of these coins rolled out of Denver's presses. To most people, a 1958 D wheat penny was nothing more than pocket change, a copper clink forgotten in piggy banks and penny jars. But hidden among them was something extraordinary. The story begins with a mistake. Or at least, that's what collectors believe. A rare double die error, so dramatic and so shocking, that the few pennies struck with it would become legends. When the coin was first spotted, dealers couldn't believe their eyes. The date, 1958, itself looked doubled, etched into the copper in a way that made seasoned numismatists gasp. The words, "In God We Trust," appeared thicker, stronger, as if the minting press had stamped them twice with divine force. But here's where it gets unbelievable. For decades, only one known example of this coin surfaced. Just one. A single penny from 1958 with a double die obverse that could stand up against the legendary 1955 double die Lincoln cent. And because of its unmatched rarity, when it finally reached auction, it stunned the coin world. The bidding began with hesitation, whispers in the room, dealers gripping their paddles tightly. But as the numbers climbed, so did the electricity. $10,000, $50,000, $100,000. And then, in a moment no one saw coming, it skyrocketed toward the unimaginable, over $1 million for a single penny. Collectors were shocked. Ordinary people couldn't believe it. A coin they might have tossed into a vending machine was suddenly commanding a price that could buy a house, a luxury car, or even change someone's life forever. This was more than a sale, it was a revelation, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. News spread like wildfire. Dealers were rushing to check their inventories, collectors were digging through their wheat penny rolls, and everyday people were emptying jars, scanning for that one telltale clue. The whispers turned into a frenzy. Could there be another 1958 D double die penny still out there, hiding in plain sight? This is where the story grips even tighter. Because unlike the more common wheat cents, this coin doesn't announce itself loudly. Its rarity makes it a phantom. Most 1958 D pennies look ordinary, worn from circulation, their copper dulled by time. But the double die, it shines like lightning once you notice it. The date leaps out, the letters carry weight, and suddenly you realize you're staring at a miracle of minting, a mistake worth over $1 million. One collector recalled how he almost overlooked his find. The penny sat in a small bag of old change, forgotten in a drawer for decades. He said he almost tossed it into a Coinstar machine, until he spotted something unusual in the date. That tiny hesitation, that extra moment of curiosity, changed his life forever. That penny became his million-dollar miracle, and the emotional weight of this discovery still echoes today. Imagine holding history in your hand, a sliver of copper that somehow survived the chaos of minting, slipped past inspectors, passed through countless hands, and landed in yours. That's not just luck. That's destiny, but this is where it gets even more suspenseful. Because unlike the legendary 1909 SVDB or the 1914 D, where mintage numbers are well documented, the 1958 D double die exists in a world of mystery. How many were struck? Was it just one? A handful? Or are there dozens lying dormant, waiting to be found in rolls tucked away in attics and basements across America? No one knows. And that mystery is what keeps collectors awake at night. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the date, 1958. If you see strong, clear doubling, you may be staring at one of the rarest wheat pennies in existence. Don't be fooled by machine doubling or wear. True double dies are bold, unmistakable, and once you see one, you'll never forget it. Every time a roll of wheat pennies is opened, the hope is alive. Dealers carefully tilt coins under bright lights, scanning edges and dates, hearts racing with the thought, could this be the one? Could this be the next million-dollar penny? And here's the truth that keeps the legend burning: the 1958 D wheat penny is not just a coin. It's a reminder that miracles hide in the smallest corners of life. That something as ordinary as a penny in your pocket could secretly hold the power to transform your future. Collectors were shocked when that first penny shattered records. They're still shocked today, because the market has only grown stronger. Demand for unique errors and one-of-a-kind varieties has never been higher. Which means, if another example surfaces, the value could easily soar beyond $1 million. Think about that. A penny worth more than $1 million. A copper coin no bigger than your thumbnail, carrying the weight of history, chance, and destiny. It's the kind of story that makes even non-collectors stop and stare. And now, here's what you need to know: how to identify it for yourself. First, check the date, 1958, struck in Denver, marked with the small d beneath it. Then, look closer. If the numbers of the date or the letters in God We Trust show strong, bold doubling, you may have found it. Not faint, not blurry, but clear, powerful doubling. That's the key. Second, don't mistake mechanical doubling for the real thing. Machine doubling often looks flat or shelf-like, but a true double die looks three-dimensional, almost as if the coin is speaking to you. And third, if you believe you found one, don't spend it. Don't polish it. Don't even clean it. Protect it, get it authenticated, and prepare yourself for a discovery that could change your life forever, because this isn't just a story about a coin. It's a story about possibility. About hope hiding in plain sight. About how something so small, so ordinary, could carry the power of $1 million. So tonight, when you open that jar of pennies, or dig through that old box in the attic, remember this: one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And your miracle could be waiting too. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but when the truth came out, it sold for over $1 million. The year was 1955. Factories were roaring. America was growing stronger after the war. And in the middle of all that progress, one tiny mistake at the US Mint would create a coin so rare, so mysterious, that it would change the lives of the lucky few who ever held it. That it looks ordinary. A simple Lincoln penny. No mint mark. Copper shining just like the billions of others. But under the right light, under careful eyes, the truth jumps out at you like a ghost from the past. Collectors call it the 1955 double die Lincoln wheat penny. A minting error so dramatic, so bold, that once you see it, you'll never forget it. The date doubled. The word liberty doubled. Even In God We Trust looks like it was stamped twice by accident. And yet, it wasn't just an accident. It was a once-in-a-lifetime fluke of the minting process, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. You see, when these pennies slipped into circulation, nobody knew. Workers at the mint thought nothing of it. They kept stamping, kept producing coins by the millions. And then, suddenly, people began noticing something strange. Cashiers, store clerks, and ordinary Americans started whispering, "Have you seen this penny? The letters look doubled." At first, most thought it was just worn out. A scratch. A trick of the eye. But then collectors got their hands on it, and the secret was out. This was no ordinary penny. This was a once-in-history mistake, and there weren't many to go around. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle, but here's the chilling part: back then, most people spent them without ever realizing what they had. Imagine buying a stick of gum with a coin that, today, could pay for your house. Dealers today believe thousands were lost, forever gone, spent and melted down, leaving only a small fraction surviving. At major auctions, these 1955 double-die pennies have shocked the world. Collectors competing, dealers bidding furiously, prices climbing higher and higher until finally, the hammer falls. Hundreds of thousands of dollars exchanged in an instant. And in the most pristine condition, one of these 1955 no-mint mark wheat pennies sold for over $1.2 million. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Most 1955 pennies look normal. Billions were struck. Billions still exist. But only the ones with that unmistakable doubled lettering hold the treasure. Without that, it's just 1 cent. With it, it's a life-changing discovery, and yet, there's another twist that makes this coin legendary. For decades, fakes have flooded the market. Counterfeiters tried to trick collectors by etching, pressing, and altering pennies to mimic the double die effect. But experts know the difference. They know the doubling is bold, strong, and most visible on the date and the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." Still, countless collectors have been fooled. And countless others have missed the real thing, brushing it aside as ordinary change. Think about it. Millions of wheat pennies were tucked into jars, boxes, and drawers across America. Many families passed them down, hidden in collections nobody ever bothered to check. And among those jars could be a single coin that holds the power to turn 1 cent into a $1 million fortune. Collectors were shocked when one of the finest known examples surfaced in nearly uncirculated condition. It was like opening a time capsule from 1955, the coin frozen in perfection. And when the bidding started, jaws dropped. The price soared past expectations, setting records that made headlines, but what happened next only deepened the mystery, because after that sale, collectors began scouring every wheat penny they could find. Families tore open old albums. Treasure hunters rushed to flea markets, coin shops, even garage sales, hoping to catch a glimpse of that double die effect. Stories began to spread, of a farmer who found one in his coffee can of change, of a young boy who spotted one in his grandfather's coin collection, of a man who, for years, had used it as a lucky charm in his wallet before learning it was worth hundreds of thousands. Each story added fuel to the fire. Each discovery proved that lightning can strike in the most ordinary places, and that's what makes this coin so powerful. It's not locked away in some museum. It's not buried deep underground. It's out there. In pockets, drawers, and dusty old collections. Waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin. Every time one appears at auction, the bidding war is fierce. Some collectors have waited their entire lives for the chance to own one. And when that hammer drops, they're willing to spend more than most people earn in a lifetime. But let's bring this closer to home. Let's bring it to you. If you have a 1955 penny, no mint mark, Lincoln wheat on the back, take a closer look. Tilt it under the light. Focus on the date. Look at "Liberty." Look at "In God We Trust." Do the letters look doubled, bold, almost like a shadow lying beneath the original design? If yes, you might be holding a coin worth hundreds of thousands, maybe even over $1 million. Don't be fooled by minor doubling on other dates, or by fake coins that don't carry the same crisp, bold marks. The true 1955 double die is unmistakable. Once you see it, you'll know. The next great discovery hasn't happened yet. Somewhere out there, tucked away in a dusty drawer or forgotten jar, another pristine example is waiting to be found, and maybe, just maybe, it will be you, because the 1955 no-mint Mark Lincoln wheat penny is not just a coin. It's a once-in-a-lifetime miracle. A mistake that became a treasure. A cent that became $1 million. But when it finally surfaced, it shocked the entire coin world. A single 1956 wheat Lincoln penny, a coin most people would spend without a second thought, sold for a fortune, and some experts whisper, it could be worth up to $1.5 million. What secret hides inside this little piece of copper that makes collectors fight over it like treasure hunters chasing gold? Stay with me. Because the story of the 1956 wheat penny is filled with mystery, mistakes, and miracles that could change the way you look at every coin in your pocket. Back in 1956, the Denver Mint was producing pennies by the hundreds of millions. The machines roared day and night, spitting out endless streams of coins with the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln. On the reverse, 2 wheat stalks, a design that had already become an American classic. Most of these coins were ordinary. Billions would circulate, buy candy, ride buses, and eventually fade into history, but a few, just a few, would carry errors so rare, they would later be worth more than anyone could imagine. And here's where the story takes a turn, because hidden among those billions, a handful of coins slipped through the presses with mistakes no one noticed at first, tiny flaws, doubling, striking errors, and misalignments that seemed meaningless in 1956, but today, they're worth a fortune. One collector discovered such a penny tucked away in an old cigar box. At first glance, it looked just like any other wheat penny, but under magnification, the details leapt out. The mint mark, the small d just beneath the date, showed signs of being punched more than once. The letters on Liberty and In God We Trust carried faint doubling, a ghostly shadow effect only trained eyes could see. What happened next stunned even the experts. That coin, once passed through hands for just a single cent, went to auction. Dealers whispered about it before the bidding began. Some thought it might fetch a few thousand. But as the gavel fell, the room erupted. The 1956 double die penny had just sold for an amount that left jaws on the floor, nearly $1 million, and some specialists believe the finest examples could push as high as $1.5 million if one were to surface today. But why does such a small flaw matter so much? Because in the world of coin collecting, rarity is king, and the 1956 wheat penny with doubling or striking errors isn't just rare, it's nearly mythical. Collectors are rushing to get their hands on one. Auction houses list them as highlights, dealers hunt them at shows, and ordinary people dig through old jars of change, hoping for a miracle. And here's the suspenseful part, the average person would never notice the difference. It takes patience, a sharp eye, and sometimes even a magnifying glass, but if you know what to look for, you could spot one hiding in plain sight. Now think about that for a moment. One man's pocket change became a life-changing miracle. The 1956 penny isn't just valuable because of errors. There's also the factor of condition. Coins that remain in pristine, uncirculated shape, those with blazing red copper surfaces, can skyrocket in value. Even a normal 1956 penny in top condition has sold for thousands, but when you add the possibility of doubling, repunched mint marks, or misstrikes, the price can climb into the stratosphere. But the story doesn't end there. Because for every known example, collectors believe there may be others out there, coins that have never been found, still waiting in piggy banks, dresser drawers, or tucked away in envelopes by grandparents who once saved wheat pennies. And that's why the hunt continues. A retired man sorting through his late father's coin collection, dozens of wheat pennies spill onto the table. Most are worth a few cents, but then, he spots one with that faint doubling, that peculiar mint mark. He takes it to a dealer, who confirms it. The coin is genuine. Overnight, his inheritance turns into $1 million windfall. This is why coin collecting is called the treasure hunt you can carry in your pocket. Because discoveries like this don't just happen to seasoned experts, they can happen to anyone, even you. But before you rush to cash in your 1956 penny, listen carefully, because most of them are common. You need to know exactly what to look for, or else you'll miss it. Examine the date. Look closely at the 1956 On certain rare coins, you'll see doubling in the digits. Check the mint mark D. Some show signs of being struck more than once. These are called repunched mint marks. Study the lettering, especially Liberty and In God We Trust. Doubling can make the letters look like they have a faint shadow, and most importantly, examine the condition. A bright, lustrous, uncirculated coin can multiply the value beyond belief, but here's the trap most people fall into. They see ordinary machine damage or wear and think it's doubling. They assume every weak penny is rare. Don't make that mistake. True double dies and rare errors are unmistakable under magnification. And that's what separates the $1 million miracle from the 1-cent coin. So the next time you find a weak penny, don't ignore it. Don't spend it. Don't toss it back into change, because hidden among the ordinary, one coin could change everything. Collectors were shocked when the 1956 D penny first shattered records at auction. Dealers whispered that it might just be the next legendary treasure, and today, experts say that the right coin, in the right condition, could be worth as much as $1.5 million. Think about that. A penny so small, so common, that most people walk past it without care, but in reality, it holds the power to transform someone's life forever. It's the 1953 D wheat Lincoln penny, a coin so ordinary at first glance, you might mistake it for loose change at the bottom of your car seat. But in rare cases, this tiny copper coin carries a secret, a flaw, a quirk, a detail so powerful, that it can transform a single cent into a life-changing fortune of up to $2 million. Collectors whisper about it. Dealers dream of it. And some lucky finder may already be holding one without even knowing. Why would a simple penny from 1953 suddenly rewrite the rules of value, demand, and destiny? The truth begins deep inside the Denver Mint, where an unnoticed error changed everything. Back in 1953, millions of pennies were struck with the D mint mark. Most were flawless, ordinary, destined to pass from pocket to pocket, buying candy or newspapers. But a tiny fraction carried mistakes. Doubled mint marks. Struck through grease errors. Off-center designs. Even rare proof-like strikes that somehow escaped the presses. One collector described the moment he first spotted it. At a coin show, buried in a dealer's tray, it looked like nothing more than a dull brown penny. But under the right light, he saw it, the mint mark, doubled and sharp, like a ghostly second impression. That tiny flaw turned a penny into a prize worth hundreds of thousands. And when it reached auction, the bidding war went beyond imagination. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The hammer came down, and that single coin, that forgotten penny, sold for nearly $2 million. Dealers gasped. Collectors shook their heads in disbelief. And suddenly, the humble 1953 D penny was no longer just pocket change. It was a golden ticket, a once-in-a-lifetime miracle hidden in plain sight. And here's the thing most people don't realize: not every valuable 1953 D penny looks flashy. Some of the most valuable ones are hiding behind scratches, dull color, or years of circulation. They've slipped through generations, tucked into jars, drawers, and coffee cans, waiting for the right set of eyes. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, because he took the time to look closer. But why exactly does this penny command such staggering prices? The answer lies in rarity, history, and obsession. Collectors crave errors that are unique, coins that exist in numbers you can count on one hand. The Denver Mint, in 1953, wasn't immune to mistakes. And when those mistakes slipped out, they created coins unlike anything else in existence. Coins that shouldn't exist. Coins that defy logic. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Imagine pulling a penny from your change, worn, faded, maybe even dirty. But under magnification, the D mint mark looks doubled, or the wheat stalks on the reverse show signs of doubling. Imagine realizing you're holding a coin worth more than your house. It's happened before. And it can happen again. Collectors were shocked when a 1953 D double-die penny surfaced in near-perfect condition, graded by experts as almost flawless. The market erupted. Phone bidders drove the price sky high. And once again, a coin that cost 1 cent to make became a 7-figure prize. That's why so many of these pennies are still out there, undiscovered. Sitting in dusty jars. Resting in forgotten piggy banks. Hiding in plain sight inside an old roll of wheat cents. The thrill isn't just in owning one. It's in the hunt. The mystery. The possibility that at any moment, the ordinary penny in your hand could change your life forever, and the truth is, the story of the 1953 penny is still being written. Every time another surfaces, every time one is graded higher than the last, the record books are rewritten. And collectors can't get enough. First, check the mint mark. Look closely at the D beneath Lincoln's date. Does it appear doubled? Tilt the coin under light. Does it reveal a shadowy second strike? That's your first clue. Next, examine the wheat stalks on the reverse. Look for doubling in the lettering, especially in 1 cent and E pluribus unum. These are signs of double dies that command huge premiums. Condition matters too. A well-preserved coin can skyrocket in value. Even a small flaw can mean the difference between a few $100s and $1 million. Even circulated examples, coins that look worn from decades of use, can still be worth thousands if the error is present. So don't dismiss that old jar of wheat pennies. Don't overlook the coin you nearly gave to a cashier, because the 1953 wheat Lincoln penny is the very definition of hidden treasure, and right now, someone out there has one sitting in a desk drawer, unaware that it could be worth over $2 million.